have a few slides
Cool.
to refer to, but I really would like this to be a discussion.
Yeah.
And I'll say at first that I'm taking over from Matt Hansen, who's probably much more familiar to a lot of you. He's been really involved with Stack, works at Element 84. So I will try to do this discussion justice. And I'm also probably coming at it from a different angle from Matt as well. So if this is not the first sign that I'm coming at it from a different angle, I don't know what it is. All right, so my name's Dana Bauer, and I consider myself a geographer. Been around the geospatial industry for a while. I'll say this photo here is 10 years old, and and I was around in geospatial a while before that. Right now I'm working as a contractor for the Overture Maps Foundation, and I'll talk a little bit about Overture, but not too much. So when I think of community, these are some of my reference points. These are some of the communities that open source communities that I've been involved with over the years. Public Lab has probably been the most welcoming, inclusive, fun open source community I've ever been a part of. That's where the balloon comes into play. I got involved with a lot of their balloon mapping efforts. They've shut down. Their code still exists out on GitHub. People still contribute to it, and there are lots of artifacts of their work online. Another project that I worked on some years ago was part of the Philadelphia Python user group and the Python Software Foundation. We worked with our friends from Boston who put together something called the Boston Python Workshop. It was to create on-ramps for women and friends to become part of the Python user community. It was an on-ramp for people to get involved. And probably a line that I've used a lot, that I picked up definitely from my time working with the Public Lab, is "you are invited," which was the vibe that I've tried to convey at every community I've launched. And Michelle, I want to say, when I popped into a Stack sprint for the first time last year, I think, end of 2023, you totally had this vibe. You're coming into this, I don't know where you're coming from, but I'm going to make you feel just incredibly welcome in this community, and I'm going to give you all kinds of opportunities to get started. I'm going to build boats for you if I have to. So I'll stop showing the slides now, so that we'll have enough time to discuss, but that's where I'm coming from. Now that we've heard Brianna's terrific talk about the importance of community, I hope we can talk about how we might build a really welcoming, inclusive community within CNG. The Slack is a great start. Getting things out on Discourse is a great start. I've heard talk of more workshops and possibly sponsorships, maybe even grant programs. So that's where we're starting from. And I know all of you are coming from your own communities and probably think of community in a different way. So this is the part where folks can jump in, but maybe I'll kick things off by asking Michelle to talk a little bit about some of these Stack sprints and workshops and how that has been an entry point for a lot of people to that particular cloud native community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've only been a part of one Stack sprint, so I can't speak to all of them. and I might kind of bridge off of that, the stack sprints and just kind of the concept of it too. But I think especially post-COVID times of valuing that time spent together and finding spaces to come and collaborate together has always been highly efficient. With the last stack sprint that we did, we had the different kind of tracks of ways that people could get involved. So if you're more involved in the spec, or you're more involved with the ecosystem, or education around things. So there's different ways that people can be involved. And something that we've been discussing within the Stack community for this next year, we're thinking this is still an idea phase, so nobody get mad at me for sharing this info, but we were kind of brainstorming this idea about creating some sort of Stack tutorial, or like on-ramp that to learning Stack or being involved with Stack that's paired up with a major conference happening next year. And so we were kind of thinking, and like potentially this is still an idea phase again, but maybe having a more technical sprint happening at the same time as the intro level thing. So a place for people who are really involved with it. They already have the tech. They don't have the time to be like trying to bring people in. 'Cause that's a real truth to this matter too, is when people have that really high technical capacity, they want to work on those things. So a space for people who are more in the building of this thing, and then a different track for people who are just trying to learn it and trying to make sure that we're meeting all of those. Because sometimes I've seen the downside of, trying to put it all in one room, because that's like not everyone's needs are going to get met if we're trying to put it all together. So trying to create intentional spaces for the different levels of comfort with cloud-native geo, and like just meeting people where they're at, basically. So that's kind of my thought around that.
Yeah, I like that, meeting people where they are. You know, one thing we're struggling with in the Overture Maps Foundation is that we have a core group of very technical folks who are eager to get involved and contribute, but there's still a gap between what we're building and where a lot of the geospatial community is.
Yeah.
And we haven't solved that problem. A lot of our community building work so far has been internal, really trying to get all of the smaller companies that have joined the foundation to feel like they have a pathway to contribute. We've done quite a bit of educating internally with our own brown bags. But this is not how to build a bigger, wider, out and up, as Jed said to me weeks ago, kind of community. We have some work to do, but there's this technical gap that exists right now.
Yeah. Yeah, the two things I wrote down while you were giving your intro were the two things I really want to focus on building this next year is on-ramps and bridges. And so getting people who are not involved in this at all, a easy way to get involved, and then bridges between the communities that already exist or the efforts that are already going on, and how do we join forces and improve our community strength through those bridges.
If if I can say something here, I mean, this is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, is the fact that like everything that we're doing, not just with like advances in cloud native geo, but I think the entire data economy is very young. There just aren't enough people on the planet that know how to work with data at all, let alone at scale, let alone the complex types of data that we've all been talking about today. And because it's a new market, or it's a new domain, there just isn't enough labor there, right? And so I'll just say this is no reason to be discouraged. That this is kind of what we should expect, is that there are a few people, that are really leading in the space and everything like that, and they kind of seem unapproachable because they're pretty exceptional people. A lot of them are on the editorial board, I would say. and it's really important that we expand the community, that we add more people to the community. I talk about this all the time, but I think to Dana and Michelle's point, we have to do that on purpose. Like it's not going to just like happen automatically.
Exactly.
We have to be very deliberate about it. So, but I don't want to talk anymore. I want other people, the community, to talk. So, chime in, everybody.
Can I make one suggestion?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think I really like the cloud native. I send the link in the chat. The cloud native geospatial formats guide. I think that one is perfect. But one thing can potentially be improved is to, although right now it includes some like sample snippets in the website on the website, but there's not really a repo of like Jupyter Notebook that makes it easy for people to try things out. And it would be great to have some kind of loads that people can contribute, like Cloud Optimized GeoTilt, Stack, or PM types, whatever. All those formats to have some reproducible example that people just click the link, open in Google Colab, Jupyter, Binder, whatever. These things can try out, and then people can use it for training, adapt for different purposes or teaching, rather than right now I have to copy the snippet and then do things manually. It's not like user friendly. So there's something that potentially may be for consideration.
That's a
And
great
I
idea.
can contribute to that.
I also wanted to add that going by what Michelle said, there are two different streams I see. People who just want a ready-to-use system that they can pull data from, probably NASA or the Copernicus system, and then have them modified in some of these environments, and then it's easy and ready to use in environments like Python and R. I have a bias for R anyway. So, and then there is the other portion that enjoys or does a lot with building the technology and the software environment to do some of this work. So I feel it would be great to have two different streams of people and then have them interact in those queues. And of course, we can always cross interact sometimes when one set builds what it is that they feel they need. And then the other set can test. Like, I really don't want to bother about thinking about developing new architecture, new structure, new anything. I just want somewhere I can quickly run data. And someone mentioned earlier on about the challenge of, I think he worked with Error 5 and it isn't up to date. So it's the same thing with some of the data you have with Error 5 on Google Earth Engine. So you have some that hasn't been processed in 2020 because the vendor changed or the contractor changed. But if we have people who sort of have modifiable systems done, that others can just pick, plug and play, I think that would go a long way.
I have something. Hi, Michael Sumner from Australian Antarctic Division. I've made the move from Python to also R over quite a long time, and I really needed my work to support that. I'm quite privileged. I can't really imagine I see it would be very difficult for people to follow me from R to Python. It's like one of the problems I see is we there's a very, very strong preponderance of Jupyter notebooks, and that kind of makes it a bit frightening for people who are in R when you don't have parallel R support as well. And I'm not saying that to complain. I'm actually saying it because I started to think the software carpentry core documentation is kind of like could have a very strong parallel cloud native
Yeah.
core, and
Mhm.
I'd like to find people to help work with me on that, and I think it could also really feed
Great
into,
idea.
well, what is missing in R? Like, we don't have ZAR and we don't have X-ray. We kind of do that kind of stuff in different ways, and that to me begs, like, why don't we have consolidated libraries for both these languages? And should we aspire to that? Anyway, that's something I'm really interested in.
Yeah, I love I love the material that software carpentry and data carpentry have created, and there've been incredible people from all over the world contributing to those lessons, you know, and there's real rigor to a lot of them. I know we've had some discussions within Overture of, okay, how can we, because there's crossover in some of the contributors, how can we get more geoparquet lessons into data carpentry? You know, how can we get them kind of moving in the direction of cloud-native geospatial, because there are quite a lot of spatial analysis and mapping lessons and in their repository of notebooks. So, you know, one of the things that I like about the potential of CNG is that it could be a place where some of these groups come together. Maybe they have their own channels in Slack or in discourse. I enjoy this about the CNG Slack right now, is that I can pop in and figure out what's happening with Faboa or GeoParquet, or, I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that as a neutral space.
Yeah. No, I definitely found it confusing about where to talk and what about. The community as a whole has actually really helped me feel that space better. Yeah.
I wanted to bring up this idea of money, sponsorships, grants. I mean, lots of us want our communities to grow organically, but, you know, in some cases, sponsoring folks to attend a conference or having an ecosystem grant program to really kind of expedite a particular project or tool you might want to see. Cesium, they were just acquired by Bentley, has an amazing ecosystem grant program. Is this something that CNG might be able to do or be a conduit for, you know, for whatever corporate money is out there? Jed, I'm spending your money. If you have any money.
You're asking me? Yeah, I mean, we've done this in the past. You know, we've done this with money that's been raised for Stack, is to include people, you know, to fly people, give travel scholarships and things like that. Like I think I said at the top, it's very funny in my introductory remarks, I spoke for like 5 or 7 minutes before I realized I wasn't in the webinar. So I don't know if I actually said this when I was talking to people or when I was truly talking into the void. But it's very important to me that we always have a free option for everything that we do. And you just have to ask, you know? And so I'll say this, you know, like most of the people that sign up for membership of Cloud-Native Geo, they're paying $20. It doesn't go super far, you know, that's okay. It's kind of like a token thing. It certainly doesn't hurt, but it's a way for people to at least feel like they're pitching in. They feel ownership of the community. That's important. But really, if people can't afford that, we want them to be able to join without paying. And so I've had this kind of concept in my head as we've built a lot of what we do at Radiant, is that nothing should be free, but everything should be subsidized, kind of. And so, you know, so it's like, it's not free. You got to ask, you know, you got to ask to come in for free so that at least you have to pay that much by asking. But no, I think this is a huge part of what we want to do. But it's dependent on what kind of funding we can get. But I think it's something that we're going to be asking for deliberately a lot as we go work with funders, to be like, you know, sort of what I said before, this is a labor problem. Like, we need to give people opportunities to grow in their careers and to learn these skills. And I think there's money out there for that. And so this is a long way of saying it. Yeah, I think that's something we can do. I want us to do it.
So I don't want to tread into dangerous territory and speak on behalf of Mark and OMF, but, you know, I could see a model where, you know, within OMF, we're doing our thing, we're building the data and the schema and some tooling around it and trying to create community as best we can. But really, it would make a lot of sense for us to partner with groups that are great at building community and are already on the ground building community. So maybe there's a model where the money comes through CNG and that becomes a way that we can create some of these on-ramps for people.
Yeah.
If I may, I just wanted to bring up something. I know that, for example, OSGeo, which also kind of fosters this community, we have an issue there with kind of tools that we're building and the way we can monetize that, in a sense that we keep them open, and the core values of OSGeo are for these tools to be open, obviously. But there are so many businesses that profit from these open tools, but do not contribute back to the community in any way, neither by having members in the community or subsidizing any of these open tools. So there's a sustainability element to it, but also how can you incentivize people and businesses as well? I don't know exactly what is the current model, but that is a problem in every other bigger community that seems to be across the geospatial world. And I think there's no one solution to it, but it's something to consider, maybe attracting businesses to a certain model, but keeping the things open might subsidize other parts of the community.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I'm from OSGeo world as well as connected with Overture, as Dana knows, and Overture is a really good example. I know it's a lot different from this model, but Overture is a great example of bringing people on board, and they've done a great job of doing that. And yeah, you could learn a lot from them, I think. And if Mark was to, you know, put his hand out and say, you know, that we could help with CNG and vice versa, I think it would be a great combination.
Yeah,
in my experience, and they would benefit. It would be a mutual beneficial relationship, because Overture need people. They need people to help do things, and there's a big crossover as well, I think, between this group, you know, Overture, and I think it's different in a lot of ways. With OSGeo, a lot of people use the tools, use the software, don't care where it comes from, or they do, but they haven't got the money, or they haven't got the power within the organization to influence people to buy, you know, to pay into OSGeo. Whereas the people who are involved with Cloud-Native Geo have much more of a bigger worldview, a better worldview, I'd say, and a more connected, it seems. So, which is really good. Yeah, that's just the point I wanted to make.
thanks, Matt. Good points.
Thanks.
I think we might be over by a few minutes.
Yeah.
I really fast.
I know. I was like, wow, we needed to give this more time. But this is great because, you know, it's just a beginning. So as everyone sits and reflects on this, like, please continue to reach out to us and send us your thoughts. Dana, do you have any more closing thoughts?
Just thank you. This was fun, and I really appreciated all the folks who spoke up. I made some notes here, really great perspectives and ideas. So thanks to you all.